Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully self-enlightened One. Homage to our original master Shakyamuni Buddha. The other day I was discussing right action or virtuous karma. And we hadn't quite finished. Before we delve into right livelihood, let's revisit some remaining points about right action. So what do we call right action? Listening to the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, is right action. To listen attentively to the teachings is a righteous act. Diligent, earnest, and serious study is also right action. This is so that in the future, one has the capacity to perform good deeds. This is why, for example, we see young children who don't earn any money yet, but if they study diligently, they are naturally loved, invested in, and provided for. This is because their diligent study aligns with right action. It's quite remarkable. It's similar for young monks and nuns. When they first ordain, they may not yet have accomplished significant beneficial acts for the Dharma. However, simply by studying earnestly, diligently, and with dedication, they earn the affection of lay supporters and their teachers who then invest in their education. This is because their commitment to study is right action. We should remember this. However, the crucial aspect for a student is to study with an altruistic mind and with noble ideals. This is a point to pay close attention to. If someone studies with the thought that, later on, I'll become a person of status to gain wealth and power, then that's where the difficulty begins. Such self-centered motivation and thinking can lead to future downfall. Another aspect of right action is physical training and maintaining health. Why? Because with good health, we can accomplish many things in this world. Even a highly skilled person, the constantly ill, cannot achieve much. Therefore, training the body to have good health in order to do good deeds is also a form of right action. Thus, a Buddhist disciple should always be diligent in physical training. One should train in a skillful way that is suitable for their available time and their physical constitution. For instance, those who can handle strenuous sports may do so. But for those who are weaker, perhaps standing qigong postures or gentle exercises are appropriate. Even for those who are very frail, there are exercises that can be done lying down. These methods are also valid. The key is to consciously train the body. So, a person who is lazy and neglects physical training is not fulfilling right action in this regard. Indulgence, on the other hand, is unwholesome action. This is why within Buddhism, especially in China at the Shaolin Temple, they developed profound esoteric qigong systems to teach monks to train their health. This serves as a lesson. If we go further back in history, our Buddha, when he was still Prince Siddhartha, was extremely skilled in martial arts. He was trained in the royal palace and became very proficient in disciplines like qigong and yoga. We hear stories of him always winning first prize in competitions. This is clearly recorded. And it was precisely because of this strong physical health that later, when he renounced the worldly life, he was able to endure the harsh environmental conditions and illnesses common in remote, wild areas and the many hardships on the path of cultivation to achieve deep states of meditation. Furthermore, another aspect of right action is fulfilling one's duties. In this life, we always have duties towards our family, society, and country. These are mandatory. For example, if someone becomes a parent, they have the absolute duty to raise their children. Duty is something compulsory, different from voluntary or spontaneous good deeds. If one fails in one's duty, one incurs demerit or fault. For instance, children in a family have a binding duty to be filial and respectful to their parents. If they fail in this filial piety, they are condemned. Parents must care for their children. Similarly, a citizen has a duty to the country to contribute to its development and defense. These are compulsory responsibilities. And when we fulfill these duties, it is also called right action. Why do we have these duties? Because they are the karma from our past, our karmic connections within the cycle of rebirth samsara, from which we cannot escape. We must repay these karmic debts before we can cultivate the path to liberation. This is an inescapable principle. For example, we monks and nuns, when we ordain, must also fulfill our duties as monastics within the Sangha, the monastic community. This is also right action. Speaking of fulfilling the duties of a monk, let me share something personal. Sometimes, people who enjoy my Dharma talks dislike me immensely when they meet me in person. Is there anyone here like that? Many people rumor that I'm gloomy or stern when they meet me, not as pleasant as when I'm lecturing. Why is that? Because I'm extremely busy. People travel far, even from overseas, up the mountain, enduring hardship to meet me, perhaps expecting special treatment as overseas Vietnamese. But when they meet me, if they just want to chat, I often have to decline due to work, suggesting they rest or talk with other monks. If they have profound issues to discuss, I will sit with them. Otherwise, for casual conversation with a new visitor who doesn't yet understand much, I might just exchange a few sentences and then excuse myself. This can make them angry. This shouldn't happen. Why? Because lay Buddhists come to the temple to learn, not to make demands. Some people, especially those from overseas with the label of being an overseas Vietnamese, can have a subtle ego and demand that monks be overly solicitous. This is very conceited and can lead to demerit. One must be humble. Monks have their own work and time constraints. So, when people say I'm strict, aloof, and not as cheerful as when I'm lecturing, it's often because I'm overwhelmed with work. We must fulfill the greater duties of a monk, so time for receiving guests must be limited, especially for someone like me who isn't in robust health. You can see I look frail and sickly. It's a wonder I haven't caught a virus yet. If I did, I'd be gone and not sitting here. So please understand. Now, let's return to the right action of human beings. For example, when someone passes away and is reborn as a celestial being, they have their own specific forms of right action. Or if a practitioner attains the way and becomes a bodhisattva, an enlightenment-bound being, they have other forms of right action. So, right action can be vast, limitless, fascinating, and unique. And we lack the wisdom to fully comprehend it all. We'll just speak broadly. There are two main categories of celestial beings, often called devas. The first type is due to purely good deeds, people who lived good lives, helped others, and benefited society. They are reborn in heavenly realms, enjoy their merits, and then, when their merit is exhausted, they fall back into lower realms. The second type not only performs good deeds, but also cultivates meditation and attains deep meditative states. These beings can become bodhisattvas. So, when we speak of celestial beings, there are these two types. When people say celestial beings exhaust their merit and fall, they're usually referring to the first type. But when we pray to celestial beings to help us overcome difficulties, we are often referring to the second type, the bodhisattvas. They are also celestial beings but have cultivated the path, aspire to liberation and enlightenment, possess great compassion, and are bodhisattvas, even though they bear the name of celestial beings. So, remember these two meanings of celestial beings. Don't underestimate them, sometimes they are great bodhisattvas. Celestial beings also have Dharma talks and retreats, just like us. They gather to practice the 10 wholesome actions and have Dharma discourses. If any of us were to die and be reborn there, we'd find it quite similar, just that things are more serious, majestic, principled, and orderly. And their Dharma talks are incredibly captivating, much more so than mine. I wouldn't even be a fraction as good. The activities of celestial beings are different from ours. So we won't delve too deeply. There's another right action of bodhisattvas, which we call the vows or aspirations of a bodhisattva. This is even more profound. Bodhisattva is a general term. In the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha says that those with abundant merit and cultivation who are enlightened sentient beings are bodhisattvas. A bodhisattva is an enlightened sentient being, one who has awakened but remains to help all sentient beings. In truth, these beings possess immense merit. Great bodhisattvas are holy beings filled with compassion, ready to save all sentient beings, with vows like the Buddha's, for example, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, Bodhisattva Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. We cannot fully discuss their vows. They are infinite, and we lack the wisdom to comprehend them. Let's talk about more relatable bodhisattvas. Those who cultivate, study, and guide sentient beings to accumulate immeasurable merit to eventually become Buddhas. A special characteristic of bodhisattvas is that they never consider time. Remember this. A bodhisattva with wisdom doesn't set a time limit for their enlightenment. For them, time is meaningless. What matters is working for the benefit of sentient beings. So, when we practice and demand to attain enlightenment in this very life, we lack the wisdom of a bodhisattva. Remember this. Why? Because some teachers, when presenting a method, promise their disciples enlightenment in one lifetime if they follow them. I will say one thing, all such promises are deceitful. It's not right. Why? Because the path cannot be rushed, can only be right or wrong. Remember this. All great bodhisattvas are like this. In their work of saving sentient beings, these great bodhisattvas usually do not reveal themselves openly. They work silently, unseen, to help us encounter opportunities, meet certain teachers, find good spiritual friends, so we can do good deeds and learn beneficial things. We must remember this. Why is it important to remember? To avoid superstitious beliefs. For example, if we hear that a medium is possessed by Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, and people flock there to ask about the past and future or seek teachings, we should immediately conclude that it's not genuine. Such a thing never happens. Great bodhisattvas almost always remain hidden. For instance, say you've been studying abroad for many years, your heart is unsettled, and you don't know the right path. You pray to Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, please guide me to a true teacher, good spiritual friends, and the right Dharma. I'm tired of wandering aimlessly. You might have tried various paths and still feel insecure. So, you pray for guidance. Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara won't appear and take your hand to lead you. Instead, suddenly, you might meet someone on the street who mentions they go to a particular temple where the abbot is wise and teaches the true Dharma. They suggest you go and learn. That's how you get recruited. And you find peace there. That's how they work without revealing themselves. You don't see the bodhisattva, it's just people interacting, but an unseen. Secret guidance leads you to where you wish to be. Understand this. So, if you meet anyone proclaiming, "This is the true path, this is the right Dharma," we should be wary. Bodhisattvas always work in unseen ways. That is the vow of a bodhisattva. So far, we've discussed right action as the good deeds we must do in this life to lead sentient beings to enlightenment. We've also talked about things we often overlook like studying and physical training as right action. I've briefly introduced the right action of humans, celestial beings, and bodhisattvas. Now, let's return to the noble Eightfold Path for human beings, specifically to the part about right livelihood. This aspect is crucial. As a monastic, when I studied the Buddha's teachings on right livelihood, I was astonished and filled with admiration. Why? Because the Buddha was extremely practical to include right livelihood in the Eightfold Path. The Eightfold Path is a process of cultivation, and right livelihood is a vital step. What does right livelihood mean? It means an honest way of making a living. That is, we must do something to have food to eat, to have money for rice, clothes, in a rightful, honest way. That is right livelihood. And it's a crucial step on the path to liberation. Remember this. Thus, Buddhism is very practical. Of course, right livelihood differs from monastics and laypeople. Laypeople earn a living in one way and monastics in another. Laypeople engage in worldly work to make a living so they can then sit in meditation and chant sutras. It's different, but everyone must have an honest way to sustain themselves. Otherwise, we cannot practice. If all we have is right view and right thought, but no right livelihood, it's the fifth step. Our ancestors had a saying, "One must have sustenance to practice the way." This reflects the practical nature of Buddhism. The issue of livelihood is placed squarely within the context of spiritual practice. Remember this, the issue of livelihood is seriously considered within the path of cultivation. This means a practitioner cannot be reckless or delusional. To use plain language, a practitioner cannot be foolhardy. Some people say, "Oh, I'll just be reckless and follow my fate, whatever happens." Happens. That shows a lack of understanding of right livelihood. Someone who understands right livelihood knows they need stability to practice. This is a sign that one's right action, meritorious actions, is bearing fruit. Why? Because if one's livelihood is unstable or insufficient, one cannot practice. For example, if you've run out of rice and don't know what you'll eat this evening, I dare anyone to sit peacefully in meditation. Can you meditate if you're out of rice? Can you recite the Buddha's name? That person would be more spiritually advanced than the Buddha. The Buddha clearly stipulated that the rice granary must be full before one can sit and practice. This is a requirement the Buddha set, and he included it seriously in the Eightfold Path. It's not a simple matter. For instance, when building a house, we must lay the foundation first before building the walls. Similarly, rice, money, food, and clothing must be secured before one can sit to practice meditation with determination to overcome the ego. That's the higher practice, but the lower foundation is having enough food, clothing, rice, and money. Some might be surprised. Why does spiritual practice involve talk of rice and money? This is because to practice, the body must be healthy, and to be healthy, one must not be hungry. Hunger leads to fatigue, and then how can one sit and practice? Secondly, to practice, the mind must be at peace, free from worry and preoccupation. Only then can we delve deep into our inner selves to transform our ego through meditation. If you're constantly insecure, worried about where your next meal is coming from, how can you practice? You might be reciting Namo Amitabha Buddha, but your mind is wondering if your neighbor has any rice to lend. You can't focus. One must have no debts and enough rice and money to recite Namo Amitabha Buddha with a focused mind. It's a prerequisite. Remember this, why does right livelihood come after right action? Why right action then right livelihood? What does right action mean? Right action, in short, is making merit. Remember that. Making merit comes first, then right livelihood. What does this mean? It means having sufficient merit first, which then leads to having enough to eat and wear, enabling practice. This is the tight logic in the progression of the Eightfold Path. It cannot be otherwise. That's why the Buddha requires us to practice generosity, to make a lot of merit. This merit then naturally leads to us having enough to eat and wear, a prosperous livelihood. After that comes right effort, leading to right mindfulness and right concentration. It's very clear. So, if we look at ourselves and see that right livelihood has not yet manifested, meaning our livelihood is still a struggle, we must understand that our right action, our merit-making, is not yet complete, not yet perfected. Insufficient right action means right livelihood hasn't appeared. In that case, hold off on right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Continue to create right action. Continue to cultivate merit. Practice the Dharma as much as you can, but prioritize creating more right action to overcome material difficulties first. Therefore, while Buddhist teachings can be profound, the measure for the Eightfold Path often lies in our wallet. This statement may sound harsh, but it's an undeniable reality. If our life is still a struggle, don't talk about high spiritual achievements yet. Why? Because it means our right thought, right speech, and right action have not yet matured, so right livelihood has not yet manifested. Remember this. So, if we practice in such a way that right livelihood appears, abundant, comfortable, it means the preceding rights, right thought, right speech, right action are relatively stable and established. Then our life becomes sufficient. This is a crucial stage. If our livelihood is not righteous, the process towards liberation is not perfect. Therefore, the livelihood must be both sufficient and correct/ethical. Sufficient means the work we do provides enough for us to eat, wear, live comfortably, and have some savings, so we don't have to worry. Correct/ethical means the work we do does not involve evil but instead creates merit. So, when we talk about right livelihood, remember these two, sufficient and correct. Correct means that profession brings us enough food and clothing, savings, money for insurance, especially important now for buying masks against viruses, etc. And that profession is one that creates merit, not demerit. Later, we'll analyze which professions create merit and which create demerit. It should provide us with stable employment. Remember, stable employment, not working for a bit and then the job disappears, forcing you to find another, then another. That means your merit is still insufficient. We must measure this. This is a way to measure merit. It also gives us the right to choose a comfortable and expansive profession. For example, someone with little merit might struggle to find any job, and when they do, they're overjoyed. But someone with merit might have 3 or 4 job offers and can choose whichever they prefer. That's having merit. So, if we have the right to choose our profession, we know our right action is sufficient. Now, when we have surplus merit and can choose among many professions, this is when we must decide to choose the right profession so that our merit increases daily. Why? For example, with right action like general good deeds, we make merit when we have the opportunity. We might help someone for a few days, then it might be 10 days or half a month before another opportunity arises. That's right action. But with right livelihood, if it's a righteous profession, we are working every day. We go to work every day, right? And so, if that profession is righteous, then every day we are creating merit. Every day, merit is created. Therefore, right livelihood is very important. When we have the right profession, our merit grows daily. Right action as sporadic good deeds is occasional, but right livelihood is daily. That's why the profession is so important. Sometimes, on the road, I see construction workers building roads, digging, working diligently every day. They may not realize they are doing a very righteous job, creating merit every day. At the end of their lives or in their next lives, they might become wealthy without ever knowing any Dharma. They might not even believe in religion, yet they become rich. Why? Because they unknowingly had a profession that caused them to create merit daily. This is often more than lay Buddhists who only do charity work occasionally, perhaps during a flood or natural disaster season. That's just a few days. But with the right profession, is merit every day. However, because they lack knowledge of the Dharma, in their next life they might be rich but not believe in the Dharma. Do we see many such people? Yes. The reason is, in a past life, they might have been a worker paving roads. So, if we want to be rich now, perhaps we should apply to be road construction workers. There are such cases. They unknowingly create merit. And right livelihood means creating merit every day if it's a righteous profession. Now, which professions create merit and which do not? Basically, most professions that serve society and public welfare are good. Education, teachers, educators, and everyone in the education system who arrange for the country's education all create merit. Teachers directly instruct, but behind them is a whole support system, all create merit daily. Healthcare, this alleviates human suffering. Medical staff, from doctors, physicians, nurses, orderlies, sanitation workers, ambulance drivers, hospital administrators, to security guards, all create merit daily. We see that living in this world, it's easy to gain merit if one has a profession that serves the people. Civil servants, officials at various levels of government. Civil servants who work daily, plan, receive citizens, manage, distribute, and organize the country are all creating merit. These are public service duties. Military, do they have merit? Yes. We sit here peacefully thanks to those defending our borders and remote areas. Without them, this place would be chaotic with bandits and rebels. Our country would be in turmoil with wars, bombs falling anytime. Look at some war-torn countries where bombs explode daily, killing and injuring dozens. People live in constant fear, unable to study or work. Even the simplest aspects of life are disrupted by war. Therefore, those who serve in the military to protect the country have merit. Every day they are on duty even if they encounter no enemy. Their presence safeguards the nation, and that is merit. Police, do they have merit? Yes. Preserving public order is extremely hard work. When we ride our motorbikes, we wear masks. But the traffic police directing traffic at intersections can't wear masks. How would they blow their whistles? They inhale all the exhaust fumes and dust. They need good health to stand all day. While we can sit when tired, police officers must stand. All these actions create merit daily. Production, agriculture, construction, and industries that create good and beautiful things for life all generate merit daily. What is needed? Only the good intention to serve and diligence are needed to create merit. Laziness does not create merit. These service professions gradually accumulate merit. Are there professions that, the more one does them, the more demerit one accumulates? Yes. Theft. The more you steal, the more demerit. There are professions permitted by law but condemned by morality. For example, running nightclubs. These places often become breeding grounds for crime. Countless people go there and become corrupted by drugs. Many families break down because of nightclubs. People go there, have affairs, and ruin their homes and lives. So many lives are ruined. But these establishments are licensed. Legally, they don't violate the law, but from a moral and cultural perspective, they are reprehensible. I once said painfully that with every nightclub that opens, we lose a piece of our moral fabric. Another profession, owning and operating establishments that primarily sell alcohol. Although it serves food and drink, it heavily involves alcohol. So, the more one does it, the more demerit one accumulates. Selling alcohol is not legally prohibited like other goods, but it creates demerit. Drug trafficking, arms dealing, human trafficking, gambling dens, these are prohibited by law, and engaging in them knowingly creates heavy demerit. Hunting, does hunting create demerit? A lot. Extremely. There were some men who went hunting for endangered wild cattle and died. It's happened many times. This is the last straw that breaks the camel's back when merit runs out. Hunting a few endangered animals, which should be protected, means their own lives are also shot. These are professions where the more you do them, the more demerit you accumulate. Every day, demerit piles up. When it reaches a critical point and merit is exhausted, everything collapses. There's nothing left. Death leads to rebirth in woeful states, hells, or as hungry ghosts, which is extremely suffering. There are professions where it's hard to conclude whether they create merit or demerit. For example, fishing. Is it demeritorious or meritorious? Very hard to say. For a time, I lived in a coastal region where people fished for a living. The people there were very devout, went to temples, and did good deeds conscientiously. But their livelihood was fishing. When I lectured there, I couldn't say their work was sinful or they would have been heartbroken, as it was a trade passed down for generations. Many of those who truly supported the temple and the monks were from fishing families. Before I went to that region, I simply thought fishing was sinful. But after living there, I couldn't say that anymore. I saw the issue differently. Why is it hard to conclude? Firstly, they are still providing food for society, as people still consume fish. Articles are even published saying fish is good for heart disease, which sounds appealing. But the demerit is in the act of killing. There are things we see that aren't very clear. Once, I watched a documentary about the ocean. It showed schools of millions of fish swimming together in dense masses. Larger fish would attack these schools to feed. Watching it, I felt a sense of resignation, not knowing what to say. It's as if they are born to be food for larger creatures. From birth to death, their lives seem to lack meaning. They don't learn any moral principles, nor do they know how to make merit. They live by instinct, and their purpose seems to be to feed others. These are difficult things to ponder. Watching nature films, one sees things that make the cycle of rebirth seem truly frightening, being born into different bodies. For example, butchering livestock daily, does it create merit or demerit? Killing animals causes them pain, so it's demeritorious. But we eat it, so is that meritorious? We enjoy it. It still provides food for society, which still needs such food products. But the butcher is indeed committing the act of killing, which is demeritorious. Therefore, we hope that one day science will develop cultured meat grown from cells without killing animals. We've discussed this before, right? Growing cells until they are large enough to be sold as meat. People who eat meat can still have it with guaranteed protein, and we await scientific progress so humans can escape the karma of killing. However, the merit is very great in professions like planting and protecting forests, conserving water sources, protecting the air, firefighting and rescue services. Normally, do we ever think about firefighters? Not until there's a fire in our neighborhood, then we realize how lovable, precious, and kind they are. Normally, if we meet a firefighter, we see their job as something distant, unrelated to us, but they ensure our peace of mind to live. Once I saw a house on fire. People called the fire department. Standing nearby, I saw the burning multi-story building. Observing the firefighters, I realized their job isn't as easy as one might think. Just point a hose, spray water, fire out, go home. No, they have to climb up to the heart of the fire, break down doors to let water penetrate inside because spraying from outside doesn't reach the core, and the fire continues to burn, and people inside could die. They have to climb up, break doors, rescue people, and get water inside the house to extinguish the flames quickly and save those trapped. It's very arduous. I saw how tired they were, climbing up and down the slippery, wet ladders covered in soot and water. Someone should write a poem, "I love you, firefighter." So far, we've talked about professions that create merit. However, even if a profession is meritorious, if done without good intention, it also becomes demeritorious. For example, a doctor's job is to heal, that's meritorious. But if done without good intention, say a patient comes, and a single injection could cure them, but the doctor only gives half a dose or a placebo, so the illness drags on for weeks, forcing the patient to return multiple times, that accumulates demerit. Or civil servants? Instead of serving the people, create difficulties to extort bribes. Or police who protect criminals. These are meritorious professions, but without good intention. They immediately become demeritorious. Or teachers who teach superficially in class but only teach thoroughly in private tutoring sessions. These are very demeritorious acts. I heard this story. It's hard to imagine. For instance, the executioners of old. They beheaded criminals. The criminal was tied up, they swung the sword, the body fell, but the head, with its long hair, people had long hair back then, might still be caught on the post. They'd pull it down and swing again. It's a demeritorious profession. Yet they still manage to profit from it by taking bribes. It's strange. An old person told me about an executioner in Hue, a historic city during the imperial era. When a criminal was to be executed, their family would be waiting to claim the body. The executioner might deliberately not sever the head with one clean stroke. He might chop off an arm, then a leg, while the victim writhed in agony but was still alive. He wouldn't deliver the final blow until the family slipped him money. Then one strike and it was over. Even in such a profession, they could take bribes. To profit from the physical suffering of others is unimaginable. I don't know where such people go after death. Once I watched an American film, Training Day. It's about a young, newly graduated police officer assigned to an experienced senior officer for street patrol training. Surprisingly, the senior officer was corrupt, abusing his position to murder and rob. The profession is noble, but an evil person can still use their position to do evil. So, we've been talking about needing a righteous profession that creates merit. But fundamentally, what creates merit is morality, good intention, right view, and right thought. These aspects of a moral mind combined with a correct profession create merit. If the profession is correct but morality is lacking, it still creates demerit. Have we heard of presidents being prosecuted for corruption? Yes. Someone elected by the people reaching the pinnacle of glory can still be arrested and jailed for corruption. For example, a very noble profession, working in an orphanage to care for children whose parents have died or abandoned them. These children are brought to an orphanage by kind-hearted people. Is that profession noble? Extremely noble. But how can it become demeritorious? By embezzling funds because no one audits the books. So, the children are always kept looking poor, hungry, thin, and pale. They never have decent clothes or enough to eat. They are kept looking pitiful so that when visitors come and see their poverty, they donate more. The managers then pocket the excess. They maintain this image, always keeping the children looking malnourished. It's heartbreaking. Outwardly, it's charity, but inwardly, it harbors evil. Or some people open schools to educate Sangha members. A very noble deed. But if it's just to receive donations, without caring about the quality of education or providing properly for the Sangha members, keeping them underfed to elicit more donations, these are painful realities in life. Therefore, goodness must be deeply embedded in our souls, in our morality, our right view, and right thought. So, for Buddhist lay practitioners, when we work to earn a living, we must think of the benefit of the community first. When we think of serving with all our heart, think of our salary. Our salary is a measure of our merit. If our merit amounts to that much, say a certain amount per month, and we can't find a better job, then that's our current level of merit. So be content with that. And every day, every month, serve with all your heart to create your merit. Dedication to one's work is right livelihood. However, because we are Buddhists, the time we dedicate to work for right livelihood must be balanced with time for family, for Dharma activities, and for personal cultivation, as well as leisure time for relaxation. So, we have time to work, say 8 hours a day. That's time for practicing right livelihood, working diligently with good intention. Then there's time to care for family, time for Dharma activities, connecting with the temple, time for personal cultivation for monks and nuns, or time for personal rest and recreation. We balance these, but we know for sure that during those golden 8 hours of practicing right livelihood at work, we are making merit if we work with good intention. This is important. There are cases like employers exploiting workers by paying very low wages. Such situations exist. There are also collective struggles, protests, etc. These are complex issues, and we have little time. Delving deep into them would take us too far, so I don't want to go there. When is right livelihood accomplished? It's when, suddenly, easily, after working for 5 or 10 years with all your heart to serve, you find money coming to you easily. Your livelihood becomes noticeably easier. This means that for the past 5 to 10 years, your practice of right livelihood, working for a living, has borne fruit. It's accomplished. You start to see that livelihood and money come easily. Then you are ready to move to the next stage. Right effort to enter right mindfulness and right concentration. These are the remaining 3 parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. But to enter these 3, right livelihood must be accomplished. Right livelihood is accomplished when you see your life becoming easy. That's the sign. Regarding the livelihood of a Buddhist monastic, for monastics, the way of living is different from lay people. Why? Because they cannot engage in business, be civil servants, or police officers. They can't do much commerce. So what is the main livelihood of a monk? What do they do to eat? Have you considered this before ordaining? If you ordain, you'll know immediately. Each religion has a different livelihood for its clergy, but mostly it's through the support of followers. This is common across religions. The clergy are entitled to receive offerings and support from their devotees. In some other religions, they may have additional economic activities to supplement this, to reduce the burden on followers and operate more broadly. In our Buddhism, the traditional livelihood from the time of the Buddha was alms rounds. At that time, all renunciates went on alms rounds. It was normal for monastics. They lived in forests or quiet places, and when it was time to eat, they took their bowls and went into the village to beg for alms. They didn't beg like the fake monks we see in cities who harass people, pulling on their sleeves for money, even with foreigners. That's improper. True renunciates on alms rounds are composed and dignified, perhaps even a bit aloof, not needy. They receive offerings quickly but maintain their composure. It's different from fake monks who pester people. Because of alms rounds, two things happened. They ate whatever was given without choosing. The alms bowl has a limited volume. One monk who later disrobed recounted how, on his alms round, someone put a whole unpeeled coconut into his bowl, filling it completely, so he couldn't receive rice or other food. He had to pretend to go to a quiet spot, eat the coconut, and then continue his round. In the past, on alms rounds, they received whatever was offered. So they ate vegetarian and non-vegetarian food alike. Whatever fell into the bowl, they had to accept. That was the first inconvenience, sometimes eating food that wasn't to their liking. Like fish curry mixed with sweet green bean soup with coconut milk, a chaotic mix. The Buddha didn't allow bowls with multiple compartments. One had to be willing to receive. They couldn't go on alms rounds multiple times a day. Their dwelling place was in the forest or quiet outskirts. Going in and out of the village all day would disturb their practice. So, they ate only once a day. Any leftovers were for the next day. Due to the increasing faith and support of lay devotees, they often bring food offerings directly to the monasteries. This avoids the two inconveniences. Now we can choose our food vegetarian, with different dishes kept separate. We can select what we eat. Secondly, we can eat 2 or 3 meals a day for sufficient health as long as it doesn't take too much time or involve overly delicious food that requires constant cooking. Another thing is that monastics today can keep money. In the Buddha's time, they were not allowed to handle money. It was some time after the Buddha's passing, perhaps 100 years later, that monks began to keep money. The elder monks strongly opposed this, leading to fierce debates. One side argued, "What's wrong with money? Why not keep it? If you need something, having to beg for it all the time is too difficult. For example, if the temple needs a table, if they have money, they can just go buy one. Without money, they'd have to find a lay supporter who is a carpenter, preach to them until they seem receptive, then hint about needing a table. It's too much trouble." So they argued fiercely about keeping money. Eventually, the tendency to keep money prevailed up to this day. Monastics can keep money. However, our monastic code tradition states that the temple, as an institution, can hold money, but it should be managed by those with responsibility. Individuals should not keep it. When needed, it's dispersed. After use, any remainder is returned. This way, one maintains the spirit of not holding money, like the Buddha, a middle way. Keeping money has pros and cons. Pro, as mentioned, if something is needed, it can be bought immediately. Con, greed can arise. If every monk in a temple keeps their own money, you'll see that temple lacks unity. Monks might prefer to have their own separate lay supporters for private offerings, leading to division. This is a drawback. We hear painful stories, like 2 dogs playing together. Throw a bone between them and they immediately fight. Just moments ago, they were fine. People can live together well when there are no conflicting interests. But when interests arise, people can turn into enemies. Money is like that in a temple. It can destroy the virtue of monastics. This is a serious concern. Money has 2 sides. It makes life convenient, but it can also corrupt our souls. Therefore, abbots and those in charge must be extremely discerning and upright. The nature of money itself is not sinful. Whether it's sinful or not depends on how it's used. If we use it wrongly, it becomes sinful immediately. For example, If you have a sum of money in your pocket and nothing urgent to spend it on, if you use it for drinking, it's sinful. If you use that money to help the poor, it creates merit. So, the money itself is neither sinful nor meritorious, it depends on how you spend it. Therefore, if monastics today are allowed to keep money, they must be taught. And there must be rules and regulations regarding the use of money in this modern era. Our temples haven't caught up with this yet. The monastic code from ancient times, which forbade holding money, naturally didn't have regulations for its use. Thus, monastics can still be confused, unsure, or make mistakes when handling money. This needs to be supplemented in the Dharma. If a monastic is greedy, hoards money, or uses it for sensual enjoyment, they will incur demerit. If they use it for Dharma activities to propagate the teachings, they create merit. So, merit or demerit lies in the mind and hands of the monastic handling the money. The money itself is not yet sinful. What is greedy hoarding? It's liking to have a lot of money. Money offered by lay Buddhists to the temple should be transformed into something good for the world. For the Dharma, it shouldn't just sit idle in a safe. If it lies idle in a monk's safe, the sweat and tears of the lay people who earned it are wasted, and that monk incurs demerit. So, a monk who greedily hoards money incurs demerit. There are such monks. When they die suddenly without making any arrangements after the funeral and memorial services, people search and find, for example, that he hoarded a large sum from offerings. Fortunately, bank regulations might allow for the recovery of such funds as its currency in circulation. Otherwise, if a large sum just rots in a safe, where would it go? It should be brought out for Dharma work, for good deeds for the world, and importantly, for propagating the Dharma. Today, the income of monastics can also come from performing religious services or traditional ceremonies like prayers for peace or for the deceased. This is like a service. It sounds a bit strange. But when a lay Buddhist comes to the temple, gives a name, and says their parent is ill, asking for prayers for peace, then out of compassion, the monks will sincerely take the name and, during evening chanting, read it out, praying to the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, to bless that person to overcome illness and difficulties. This is a beautiful thing. In return, the layperson makes an offering. There's nothing wrong with this. It's very beautiful. The monks, with their cultivation and sincerity, pray for the layperson, and the layperson, appreciating the monk's spiritual efforts, makes an offering. Very good. But what's not good is this. When giving the name for prayers, they ask, if I pray for peace, how much is it? 50 units of currency. It becomes a commercial transaction and it's no longer beautiful. Similarly for funerals. When a lay Buddhist's family member passes away, it's a gesture of compassion for monks to come and chant to guide the deceased spirit and comfort the family. That's beautiful. It's the bond between monastics and devotees. If the family is well off and sees the monks' compassionate efforts, they make an offering. That's fine. For very poor families, monks don't accept money. I know many cases where monks even give money to buy a coffin. That's a beautiful spiritual bond. What's not beautiful? Setting a price. When a layperson comes and says, my father just passed away. Okay, you want me to handle everything? 20 million units of currency. That's not beautiful anymore. So, monks must avoid setting prices. There's something lay Buddhists should note. For prayers to be effective, for peace to come, for the family to be stable after a funeral, for the deceased to attain a good rebirth, it requires the monastic to have virtue, spiritual power, and a genuine aspiration for liberation. Only then will the prayers be potent. Sometimes people choose monks who are eloquent or have a good chanting voice but whose minds are shallow. Their prayers may not be effective. Whereas someone with a deep spiritual mind and virtue might not set prices or demand money, they live a good life dedicated to cultivation and meditation. These are the conditions for their prayers to be effective. Such people don't set prices. We should note this, and monastics should also be mindful. A monastic who wants to meet the spiritual needs of laypeople must diligently cultivate and spend more time in meditation. For chanting services, one needs a good voice. For Dharma talks, one needs wisdom. It seems one needs both relatively well. An abbot here might need both. As for me, I'm poor at chanting. At funerals, I just offer incense and make aspirations. I don't dare to chant formally. So, for monastics to truly meet the spiritual needs of laypeople, there needs to be reform. Monks must spend more time in seated meditation, More like in the Buddhist time rather than just chanting services. If a monk in a temple chants a lot all day but doesn't sit in meditation, they won't have spiritual power. In the Buddhist time, they spent much more time in meditation, so the holy Sangha's aspirations were immediately effective. This needs to be reformed today. One thing, if, as monastics, our right livelihood involves receiving more offerings from lay people than we actually need, it becomes not right livelihood. For example, if we live simply but keep urging people to offer more and more, hoarding it without using it, that's losing right livelihood. Or asking lay people to offer beyond their means is also wrong right livelihood. People have many family expenses if monks keep demanding offerings. They can't bear it and might even stop coming to the temple. That's not right. Or using funds designated for one purpose for another is wrong right livelihood. For example, if money is given to build a house, it should be used for that. If you want to use it for something else, you must inform the donor. Or if people offer a lot, but we give back too little, what do monastics give back to lay devotees? Dharma, moral principles. Therefore, a monastic must be well-versed in moral principles so that when lay people make offerings, they receive back the Dharma that nourishes their souls. If lay people offer much, but the Dharma given back is too little, the monk incurs a spiritual debt. So far, we've discussed the right livelihood of monastics. Now let's return to right livelihood in general. This part touches on economic laws, business matters, a bit difficult like economics and sociology, so please listen patiently. It might not sound like Dharma, but it's relevant. In any transaction, including business, there's an element of exchange. When we take money to the market, we exchange it for goods. They take our money, we take their goods. It's an exchange. In the Dharma too, there's an exchange. When lay devotees offer, what should monastics give back? A prayer for well-being. Merit, a hope for future merit. When they offer to virtuous monks and nuns, they hope for future merit. Dharma teachings, moral principles. Of these three things that lay people expect, monastics must be able to provide them. To offer effective prayer, one needs spiritual power. For lay people to gain merit from their offering, e.g., offering a sum, hoping for commensurate merit, the monastic must be a field of merit, a virtuous practitioner. To offer Dharma teachings, the monastic must have wisdom, virtue, and morality. So, when lay devotees bring money to the temple, the monastics in the temple have a heavy responsibility. It's not easy. One must have strong cultivation to meet these three demands. If a monastic's capacity is too weak, they cannot adequately repay the benefactor and thus incur a debt. Once indebted, can right livelihood be prosperous? No. If right livelihood isn't prosperous, one cannot progress deeply into right mindfulness and right concentration later on. One cannot attain liberation. Being indebted means one is bound to this world. Only with sufficient merit can one be liberated and free. Lacking merit, being indebted means being bound. For example, if a monastic receives offerings but cannot give back adequately through their cultivation, dharma, or virtue, they will surely have a disturbed mind, make no spiritual progress, and in the next life, may be reborn to repay the debt, unable to attain liberation. But if, upon receiving offerings, one can reciprocate with cultivation, dharma, and virtue, such that what one gives back is even greater than what was received, then one feels no fear of debt. Such a person can attain liberation. Is it easy to give more? Not easy at all. Therefore, laypeople who are considering ordaining, think about this. Does my virtue guarantee that in the future, when laypeople offer to me, I can give them back spiritual value greater than the material things they offer? Only then can I be liberated. If the spiritual value I give back is less than the material offerings, the monastic will incur debt. Think about this, then kneel before the Buddha and ask to have your head shaved. Remember that. Temples might have economic activities like publishing scriptures and books, making incense, or some temples engage in agriculture, farming, or making and selling monastic robes. These are generally acceptable as they help supplement income. Let's return to right livelihood. In business, there's an element of competition. When you do business in the world, you have to compete. For example, you open a pharmacy and it's doing well. Your neighbors see this and also open pharmacies. Are you upset? Yes, that's competition. Or you're doing business, and you see a popular billiard hall, so you want to open one too. You are competing with others. Does competition create demerit? No, it doesn't. Let's analyze this. Why? Because whatever we do, there's always competition. It means we are already competing with someone. Even temples compete. If there's a temple every few hundred meters, and you say competition is demeritorious so you won't build another, then you're sharing devotees. Or if you open a drink stall by the roadside and it's popular, then a few days later someone opens another one nearby, you're also sharing customers. That's also competition. So you can't do business without competition. So is it demeritorious? No, not necessarily. Where it might become demeritorious is if you use underhanded tactics. But if you don't work, how will you live and support your family? You are forced to work. You are forced to do jobs that others are already doing. So clearly you are competing with others. It's necessary to eat. If you don't compete, you'll starve. Life compels us to participate in market competition. Don't feel guilty that competing is demeritorious. It's a necessity. The problem arises when competition becomes unethical. Using dirty tricks to eliminate others. That's when it becomes demeritorious. But just living in this world requires some competition. If you're afraid of competition and do nothing, you'll starve to death. If you accept life, aim to create merit and cultivate, then when doing business, there will always be some competition. It's unavoidable. If you say, someone is already doing it, so I won't, then you can't support your family. Because of your duty to yourself and your family, you have to engage in work that others are already doing. Right? And often you might be imitating their trade to make a living. That's compulsory. However, if competition becomes fierce and involves unethical tactics, then it creates demerit, depletes merit, and eventually destroys right livelihood. We see large companies that engage in unethical competition, even destroying rival companies, causing them to go bankrupt and many people to lose their jobs. They might succeed for a while, but then they also collapse because their actions were too unwholesome. So, when we compete, we must have the good intention that we can survive, and the other party can also continue to survive. Buddhists must remember this. And the final important point about right livelihood. Right livelihood also has another very important meaning: strive to become wealthy. Yes, strive to become wealthy. Why? You might think Buddhism is about liberation, renunciation, letting go of everything. Now, hearing that we should strive to be wealthy sounds very strange. Is this monk teaching correctly? Or will he lead me to hell? Earlier, we said money itself is not at fault. Whether it's faulty or not depends on how we use it. Wealth is an expression of merit. We are wealthy because we have merit. Without merit, one cannot be wealthy. Even if I wanted to be wealthy, I couldn't because I don't have that merit. Some people become wealthy very easily because they have merit. Remember that. Now, let's compare two people to see the image of becoming wealthy through right livelihood. There are two people, both without money. They are similar in not having money. The first person has no money because they don't want it. Money comes to them, but they give it away, they don't keep it. The second person can't earn a single penny. Even if they search the streets for lost money, they find none. Both have no money. But one refuses money, so they don't have it. The other simply cannot earn any. So, the first person has merit. The second person lacks merit. Which person is easier to cultivate? The first one. We must cultivate to be like that. We should cultivate so that one day, when we practice renunciation and liberation and don't need money, it's because we choose to, not because we can't earn it. Our spiritual freedom comes from transcending money, not from being poor. These are two very different states. A person who renounces wealth is peaceful, self-assured, stable, dignified, and confident. A person who says, I am free, I don't need money, but can't earn any, will have a gaunt, pale, and haggard face like mine sometimes. So, when we practice the Noble Eightfold Path, we must first make merit for a period, except doing it for 5, 10, 20 years by engaging in righteous professions until the day our merit blossoms. You'll see the signs. It's a compulsory stage to go through so that afterwards, we can renounce and delve deep into spiritual practice. This is mandatory. And another thing, lay Buddhists are the source of offerings for the Sangha, right? Monks and nuns live thanks to lay Buddhists. If lay Buddhists are poor, what happens to the monks and nuns? They will also be poor. Why? Because they always consume a portion less than what they have. If lay people are very wealthy, monks and nuns will have a bit less but still be well off. If lay people are moderately well off, monks and nuns will be comfortable. If lay people are lacking, monks and nuns will be hungry. If lay people are starving, monks and nuns will pass away. So, if lay Buddhists are poor and struggling and the Sangha is also struggling, can monks and nuns accomplish great Dharma work? No. If they can't do great Dharma work, can Buddhism flourish? No. Therefore, by reverse logic, if we want Buddhism to flourish everywhere, for every household to know the Dharma, for everyone to know the Dharma, then monks and nuns must be able to accomplish many great Dharma works. They must be skilled in teaching and be able to guide many good lay disciples. For monks and nuns to accomplish such great Dharma works, they must be wealthy, have ample resources and means. For monks and nuns to have ample resources, lay Buddhists must offer generously. For lay Buddhists to offer generously, they must be wealthy. For lay Buddhists to be wealthy, they must strive to become wealthy. How else can they become wealthy if they don't try? So, when we practice right livelihood, we must understand one thing. Our efforts to become wealthy are no longer just for ourselves, as before. It is for the flourishing of the Buddha Dharma in the future. Understand this. So, the extensive discussion on right livelihood boils down to this point. The wealth we create today is for the prosperity of the Buddha Dharma in the future. Therefore, lay Buddhists must know how to become wealthy, strive to become wealthy, be determined to become wealthy. No more of the I practice, so I'm just SOSO attitude, if we are listless and half-hearted. What can we achieve? Therefore, lay Buddhists should be able to maintain a non-greedy mind while also being ready to become wealthy when the opportunity arises. Because the opportunity to become wealthy means our merit is ripening. When merit comes, just do it. Because if we are wealthy, we know we have a direction. And the Buddha Dharma will develop in the future. This is a very tight cause and effect relationship, unavoidable. Now, regarding becoming wealthy, there are a few things to remind each other. In the Noble Eightfold Path, right livelihood is the fifth stage. We must have a profession that is sufficient for living, creates merit, and thirdly, leads to wealth. These are three requirements in the practice of right livelihood. Let me repeat. First, it must be sufficient for living. Second, it must be a righteous profession that creates merit daily. Third, when the opportunity arises, one must become wealthy. That is the practice of right livelihood. When the opportunity comes, strive to get rich, don't be afraid. Just go for it. In the practice of right livelihood, there's an aspect that the Buddhist community must have: solidarity and mutual support in doing business. Just like in practicing right action, making merit. When we make merit, do we invite others? Yes. We often invite others to join in making merit. For example, if we are donating to a temple for its renovation, and we feel our contribution isn't enough, we invite our Dharma friends to contribute more. That's inviting others in right action. Similarly, for right livelihood, when there are business opportunities, don't think of doing it alone. Invite your Dharma brothers and sisters to join in, so that when you prosper, they also prosper. Then many people will prosper together to support the Buddha Dharma in the future. When we practice, remember this: in the Noble Eightfold Path, don't practice alone. Whatever good thing you grasp or achieve, share it with others immediately. From the very first step, right view. If you are fortunate enough to encounter appropriate Dharma teachings, don't just listen alone. Find ways for others to understand similarly. Share that book, that Dharma talk recording with others. Right thought too. When you have beautiful thoughts, share them, present your insights about your faith, speak about good things with your Dharma friends. Right action, making merit. Invite Dharma friends to join. And right livelihood too. When business opportunities arise, don't think of doing it alone. Invite Dharma brothers and sisters to do it together. That is the spirit of mutual support in practicing right livelihood. In worldly terms, it's called cooperating in business. Buddhists must help and support each other to do business together. In Dharma terms, it's supporting each other to realize right livelihood. Because right livelihood means making a living sufficiently and becoming wealthy through a righteous profession. So, we must support each other. Think of the Chinese community. They are very united. If any Chinese person is poor, other Chinese people will band together to help that person prosper, not letting them remain poor. Now, our Buddhist community should be the same. We dare not yet speak for all people of our nation, but first, for our fellow Dharma practitioners. If we know someone is facing difficulties, we should have the compassionate intention to help them succeed in their livelihood. Invite many other Dharma friends, each lending a hand to help that Dharma friend establish a livelihood, gain merit, and have the means to prosper. That is called practicing right livelihood, which is both making merit and having a spirit of mutual support in realizing right livelihood. Before we knew the Dharma, when we prospered, who did we think we were doing it for? For ourselves, our families. But now that we know the Buddha Dharma, when we do business, who do we think of? We think of the Buddha Dharma being part of it. As we said, with this logic, if we prosper, the monks will be supported, and the Buddha Dharma can flourish. Therefore, from today, each of us ourselves must have knowledge about becoming wealthy. Help our Dharma brothers and sisters become wealthy so that in the future, each person can contribute a hand, a foot, to build the Buddha Dharma together with the venerable monks and nuns. Remember that. Finally, when lay Buddhists have become wealthy and bring money to offer to the temple, whose responsibility does it then become? The monks and nuns. Lay Buddhists have worked hard, sweated and shed tears to earn that money. When they bring it to the temple and the monks receive it, the ball is in their court. The responsibility has been passed to the monks. The crucial remaining part is how the monks use that money to propagate the Buddha Dharma. And what does propagating the Buddha Dharma mean? We know the Buddha Dharma is truth and righteousness. We must find ways to bring this truth and righteousness to everyone in this life so that everyone knows the Dharma, knows what is sinful and what is meritorious, knows how to make merit, and knows how to love one another. That is the ideal of a renunciate. Once I was passing through a city district and saw a banner that deeply resonated with me. It was a banner for drug prevention. It said, to combat drugs and identify addicts for rehabilitation, enter every alley, knock on every door, check every person. This showed the government's determination to eradicate drugs by finding addicts and getting them into rehab. Our Buddhist propagation should have been like this too. In the future, our monks, nuns, and lay Buddhists must also enter every alley, knock on every door, reach every person to spread the Dharma. We must make everyone know the Buddha Dharma with great effort and determination. So, when we have money, when lay Buddhists are wealthy, and our monks and nuns are well supported with many means, we will together do many social charity works. Besides propagating the Buddha Dharma to let many people know the path, we will also do many social charities, for example, visiting soldiers at borders and islands, bringing ethics to prison inmates, promoting ethics in schools, helping the homeless and disadvantaged. There are many more things. Life will be very beautiful when all Buddhists are wealthy and we know how to support the Sangha. And those Sangha members are all people with true aspirations for cultivation, to work together with us to bring goodness and the path into every nook and cranny of life, to make the sun of the Buddha Dharma, the light of truth, shine on every blade of grass, every leaf, every human soul, in all worlds. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could achieve that? Let these words be a wish for all of you. May all lay Buddhists achieve this. Q&A section. Question 1. Respected teacher, will there come a day when all sentient beings are enlightened? If so, who will then make offerings to the Sangha to maintain the Buddha Dharma? Answer, this is a tricky question. There are two scenarios if too many people ordain. If people see that monastics are overly favored, and those without strong ideals or good virtue ordain just to enjoy these privileges, then Buddhism will decline along with the quality of these individuals. Buddhism might even disappear and no one would want to offer anything. That's the first case. If many people ordain, and they are all of good virtue, noble ideals, and abundant merit, then even if there are very few lay people left, maybe just one or two extremely wealthy individuals could support the entire Sangha. It's possible. When merit is sufficient, it naturally manifests. When many people have good hearts, merit will manifest. So don't worry too far ahead. Just focus on your practice. Sometimes, in one family, 3 or 4 people ordain. It means their karmic conditions are similar. When the karmic affinity is exhausted, it naturally ends. So don't worry. Question 2. Venerable teacher, I have a question I hope you can answer. How can one dissolve a harmful vow or oath? For example, if one vowed that if they do or don't do something, they'll be run over by a car. Answer. To dissolve a harmful vow, just stand before the Buddha or a Buddha image and state your intention to dissolve it. Say homage to the Buddha. In the past, I foolishly made a vow that if I did X or Y, I would be run over by a car. Now, I respectfully request to dissolve that vow. I declare that vow null and void from this day forward. From now on, I only vow to follow the triple gem, cultivate, and respect and love the venerable monks and nuns. I no longer love that person/thing related to the vow, for example. So please don't let me be run over by a car because I don't love them/it anymore. Stand before the Buddha and state your intention to dissolve it 2 or 3 times, and it will be fine. Don't worry. Question 3. The henna curl, the curl of hair between the eyebrows of the Buddha, does it curl clockwise or counterclockwise for it to be correct? Answer. This is about the henna curl, one of the auspicious marks of a Buddha. It is said that if it curls clockwise, it's auspicious. That's the traditional specification. Counterclockwise would not be considered an auspicious mark according to ancient criteria. Question 4. My economic situation is still difficult, and I'm dependent on the profession of making and selling alcohol. I know the Dharma and know this is unwholesome livelihood. I am constantly troubled and worried. Respected teacher, I don't have absolute faith that I won't starve to death if I give it up. Should I be courageous? Answer. As we discussed, when our merit is insufficient, we don't have many choices. When our merit is abundant, we can choose any profession. Being stuck in one profession indicates our merit is still limited. However, as a Buddhist practicing right livelihood and choosing the right profession, be courageous and give it up. You might face hardship for 1 or 2 months to exhaust the old karma. But because you are determined to follow the Buddha and practice right livelihood, after that, something miraculous will happen and you won't starve. Believe it. If you're still starving after a week, come find me and I'll buy you rice. This is right action. Question 5. Last time, we discussed that the Buddha taught right action/karma. Not no action/no karma. So, someone who does nothing is wrong according to the Buddhist teaching. Is that right? So, non-action, a concept sometimes translated from certain terms, is easily misunderstood as no karma or doing nothing. Does non-action correctly mean to act but without attachment? Not doing nothing at all? Answer. Yes. Last time we said the Buddha taught right action, not no karma, in the sense of an action. Someone who does nothing, lazily or neglectfully, is wrong. Non-action, if understood correctly according to texts like the Diamond Sutra which we are studying, means to act but without attachment to the action. So, one still does wholesome deeds but without clinging to the notion of I am doing, this is my deed, or its results. We will see this more clearly as we study the Diamond Sutra. Question 6. I teach biology. I often have to dissect birds or frogs for students to learn and preserve insects. There are many types. Do I incur demerit? Can this be remedied? Answer. It has been said that one can create medicine to kill flies and mosquitoes. This person still has merit because they are alleviating suffering from pests. How can we balance this? Life has many strange aspects. For example, killing flies, is it meritorious or demeritorious? Killing flies is like taking life, but it prevents disease and makes life more comfortable. Which is merit? We have to weigh the two. Once I was leading a meditation retreat at a temple during the summer. Many monks had gathered. People couldn't sit still because there were so many flies. We shouldn't be too rigid in our views on these matters or we misunderstand the Dharma. I've said this before, one day cutting a tree might be a heavier offense than killing a dog. You might think that's strange. Why? Because vegetation is the foundation of life for animals. If all vegetation is gone, animals will follow. Today, people destroy so much forest that the world's vegetation cover is shrinking, becoming rare. At that point, cutting a branch or plucking a leaf will be painful. We will see that preserving plants is fundamental goodness, and destroying them is suicide. Killing a dog doesn't affect the environment as much as cutting down a tree. One day, it might come to the point where cutting a tree is a heavier crime than killing a dog. So, for merit and demerit, don't be one-sided. Many things are broader than we think. Question 7. Many temples practice various methods like Pure Land, reciting a Buddha's name for rebirth in a Pure Land, practicing the Paramithas, perfections, etc. They walk around constantly reciting Amitabha Buddha's name, trying to recite as much as possible so the Buddha will welcome them to his Pure Land. Why doesn't the Buddhist Sangha provide guidance for a unified, more reasonable method? Answer. This is because our Buddhism has become very fragmented in terms of practice methods. That's why I, and the monks and nuns here, advocate for bringing these methods closer together, back to the original teachings of the Buddha, to reduce sectarianism. For example, if one says, I try to recite the Buddha's name so the Buddha will take me to his Pure Land, this has comforted the souls of many people. But let's consider this if I told a lay Buddhist sitting here. In 5 minutes, the Buddha will come to take you to the Western Pure Land. What would they say? Wait, give me another 50 years. I still have to care for my elderly parents, my children, etc. In their prayers, they say, I wish to be reborn in the Pure Land. I hope the Buddha will come for me. But if told it will happen in 5 minutes, they say, hold on. That's human psychology. So, we must be realistic. The first thing is to be a refuge for others, to help them with their difficulties, gradually. Question 8. This morning, someone from a temple showed me a sacred relic and said that anyone who sees it will no longer fall into the 3 woeful paths: hell, hungry ghost, animal realms. I asked if this relic was truly the Buddha's. The teacher said my question was a grave offense. Yesterday it was a certain number of small pellet-like objects, and suddenly today there were more. What about these sacred relics? Answer: regarding sacred relics, we shouldn't be too superstitious. I've said this before, truthfully, the Buddha's physical relics are not that numerous. Many were lost in ancient times. Few authentic ones remain. But if you visit Buddhist homes around the world, you'll find almost every house has some relics they worship. Sometimes I remark that if you gathered all the supposed Buddha's relics in the world, they would weigh tons, far too many. So, many are not authentic. The important thing is not to be too superstitious about them. What the Buddha left for us for eternity is not physical relics, but what? The Dharma, his teachings. The Dharma is the eternal relic worthy of our veneration, practice, and adherence. As for a white pellet that multiplies and is said to prevent rebirth in the 3 woeful paths just by seeing it, that's indeed a bit superstitious. To avoid the woeful paths, what must one do? Avoid evil, do good, and practice diligently. Question 9. My family often has ghosts appearing, walking around the house. Someone said that just hanging a piece of iron from the ceiling will stop the ghosts from appearing. Is this method a form of using charms or spells to suppress spirits? Answer: we discussed in the lesson on right view that to know if something is right or wrong, what should we do? Experiment. If you hang a piece of iron and the ghosts stop appearing, then it's correct. If not, try something else. Many people ask me what to do if there are ghosts in the house. I say this: ghosts are also sentient beings, also deserving of compassion and love. Why do they often appear to us? Because they are lonely and want our attention. There's usually nothing evil or wrong. Often they are hungry and lonely. If you know there are ghosts in your house, what should you do? Offer food and chant sutras for them to hear. When you offer food and chant for them, you are doing a meritorious deed towards them as sentient beings. Don't try to chase them away, use charms, or try to exorcise them. That just creates more negative karma, like scolding or cursing them. Instead, treat them with love, offer food, and chant sutras for them to hear. Question 10. In a single day, a lay Buddhist has many tasks: listening to Dharma talks, doing temple work, meritorious service, reciting the Buddha's name. Which of these 3 is most important? Please advise on what to choose. Answer: don't choose one out of 3. You should aim to integrate all 3 harmoniously, rather than rigidly prioritizing one over the others. May all lay Buddhists be well. See you in the next life. This one is a bit tiring. May this merit be extended to all, so that we and all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood.